Alright folks, welcome back. So last video I was discussing how Ranald Crawford has totally lost control over his nephew William Wallace, and Wallace has just basically gone on his own way now. He's no longer with his uncle. You know, their relationship has taken a turn for the worse, and Wallace has endangered his uncle by killing more of Lord Percy's men. He's kind of, I wonder if he's kind of running out of guys at this point, soldiers, or if they're starting to abandon, just leave because every single time, Percy's soldiers abuse someone in front of Wallace, he kills them, like every single time. you know, they seem to have a real attitude problem, and that largely is Lord Percy's fault. He should have command over his men, but he doesn't. It looks like. Bear in mind, he's still a young man. He's only been newly knighted months before. He's 23 years old at the time. So you would think, that King Edward would put someone more experienced in charge, of his garrisons, but apparently not. For whatever reason, he likes this young man. He's promoted him too soon, in my opinion, and given him too much power. And I think if it wasn't for the fact that Lord Percy was friends with Ranald Crawford, I think he would be in a lot of trouble in this situation because, the English they must have known that Wallace was supposed to be with Crawford because they were summoned to a meeting in Glasgow, and Wallace was to serve as Ranald's ward, and, he just had enough. He just had enough of seeing these English with this attitude, this superior, mentality, this bigotry towards the Scots, and he just said, fuck this, I'm out of here, But in his rashness, he's not really thought it through that he's put Ranald Crawford in serious danger here when you think about it, Like I said, if it wasn't for the fact that Ranald had a reputation as being an honourable man and honest and was a very competent sheriff of Ayr, and if he didn't have friends amongst the English garrison like Henry Percy, then he probably would have been thrown in jail for this, or put under house arrest or fined or something. But nothing happens to Ranald Crawford, which is almost miraculous when you think about it. But anyway, putting that to one side, Wallace goes north. He joins the Lennox, the Lennoxmen, and he, is offered a position by their chief, who is Sir Malcolm, Earl Malcolm, I believe, one and the same. Yeah, Sir Malcolm Campbell, the clan chief, and I'm not sure if Earl Malcolm and Sir Malcolm Campbell are one and the same, or if it's the same person and the titles are being used kind of interchangeably. This is where this book can be a little bit vague at times. But either way, Malcolm Campbell has an eye for talent, and no doubt he knows about the victory at Loudon Hill and the miraculous, recovery of Wallace to come back to life. So yeah, let's go from there. Stephen of Ireland, along with some others, was exiled from his home in Ireland. And it's a shame in Braveheart that this is the only lieutenant of Wallace that we actually see in the movie. We don't see any of the other ones from real life. This is the only one, Stephen of Ireland. The Irishmen were at this time staying in the Lennox as guests of Sir Malcolm. A tyrant who was Edward's man had driven them there. This low-born villain's name was Macfarian. He's going to come back around again in future chapters. He had, with Edward's aid, overthrown the rightful leaders of Ireland. Sir Malcolm assigned Stephen and the Irish, along with other men born in Argyll, to Wallace. Wallace told these men the choice was entirely theirs, and that no man was under pressure to join him. But no matter how powerful any individual, if he joined, then he would submit to his commands and recognise him as their leader. He would not thole mutiny. That means he would not tolerate it. You have to do as I say. If you want to follow me, it's voluntary. But understand that if you're following me, you're following me. In other words. Among those who joined Wallace was Fodden, a large Irishman whose skin was very fair. He had a scowling face and seldom smiled. Wallace assembled the men. He had them swear an oath of loyalty, recognising him as their captain and lord, witnessed by Earl Malcolm and the rest of the clan. Wallace appointed Grey and Kerley his lieutenants, and ordered the others to recognise their authority as seconds in command. His friends had proven themselves worthy of his trust by their deeds in the battle against Fenwick at Loudon Hill. He knew that they were hardy, wise, and loyal. As he prepared to leave with 60 men in his company, Earl Malcolm pressed him to accept various gifts, but Wallace refused his generous offers. Instead, he made Sir Malcolm accept from him the gold, silver, and jewels taken from Percy's baggage. Wallace scorned wealth and lived humbly. He never held on to riches, but gave generously to others whenever it was in his power. In further terms, I will not pursue. So it's looking like Earl Malcolm and Sir Malcolm Campbell are one and the same person, but why complicate it like that? Just stick to one. Whatever. Wallace led his men through the Lennox until they came to a place just above Lecky, where they camped. Nearby stood a fort they wished to assail. On Garganock, a small peel tower was built that was well furnished with men and supplies of food. Enclosed within its stone dyke were a chamber and a hall. The captain of this place was called Thirlwell. The men of the Lennox had led Wallace to this place to show him the fort. He decided to assail it before he journeyed further, and sent 2 spies to survey the area. Wallace was keen to take this task on hand, and had sent the men just before midnight. At the fort they saw that all was quiet, and that the sentry had fallen asleep. The drawbridge had been left down when the labourers had returned, and so the entry was less secure. None of this surprises me, by the way, because we've seen the English are incompetent and sloppy, as well as being arrogant. They don't seem to be very well led, or very well disciplined at all. So none of this is a surprise. Wallace's scouts returned quietly and told him what they had seen. They gathered their weapons, crept up to the fort, and entered easily. When they reached the chamber door, they found it was secured. On the inside, a wooden lock bar had been slid across and slotted into the masonry. The men tried to prise it across, but it would not budge. Wallace became impatient as he watched their efforts come to naught. Somewhat annoyed, he went forward and forced it from its rest, breaking away 3 yards of masonry in the process. Like Hagrid kicking down the door in the first Harry Potter, Just like that. That's the mental image that comes to mind. The men marvelled at his strength. Then Wallace raised his leg and struck the door a mighty blow with the sole of his foot. At once the brass door fittings burst open. Such a noise was raised that those inside awakened fearfully. The sentry had a stout steel staff. He aimed a blow at Wallace, but missed. How could you miss a guy the size of Wallace? I have no idea. But nevertheless. Wallace wrenched the staff from the man and bashed out his brains. Seems to be a particular favourite party trick of Wallace, doesn't it? He then threw his body into the dike. Wallace soon met with the captain, who then shared the same fate as his sentry. See what I mean? His men entered and killed the others. Wallace commanded that none be spared. 22 were slain at Garganock. They took the women and children and locked them in a hall, so that they could not escape to raise the alarm. Then hid the dead bodies and raised the bridge before daylight even. Secretly, they remained there for the next 4 days and spoiled the castle of all valuables. When he thought the time was right, they left the place during the night and went to the next wood. The captain's wife, the other women, and 3 children were set free to go where they pleased. Wallace believed it was dangerous to remain in that forest, deciding it would be better to ride to the land north of the Forth. The moss proved difficult to ride, so Wallace told the men to alight on foot. They had only a few horses, and so it mattered little. They hid many times on their journey to evade capture. Stephen of Ireland was their guide that evening as they went through Kincardine. They found a forest where they rested during the night. that was both broad and long, and the grass stretched right down to the waterside. When day broke, Wallace went for a walk. He saw many wild deer wandering about upon the banks of the Teith. Putting an arrow to his bow, he felled a large stag. A fire was built, and soon the men had plenty of fresh venison. They also had bread and wine and other stuff they had carried with them. He gave Curly the steel staff to keep, and then they passed over the deep water of the Teith. They were now in the land of Strathearn. They made their way stealthily, watching for any English. When they found any of Scotland's enemies, they slew them quickly. Whether knight, squire, or knave, none was spared. Wallace thought that they killed not half enough. They took any gold or silver that they found on their victims, cut throats, and cast the bodies into caves, as they thought it best to keep their handiwork out of sight, which is pretty smart, because somebody's bound to come along sooner or later, you know. As they made to pass over the Black Ford, 4 English barons and a squire came riding toward them and asked if they were Englishmen. Wallace swiftly drew out his sword and struck the squire upon the head. Soon the other 4 were captured and put to death. I guess that answers that question. They took their horses and anything else they liked to have, stripped the bodies, and cast them into the brook. Travelling on through Strathearn, they rested in the Methven wood that night. When it was daylight, Wallace rose and went to the forest side. There he saw many large beasts, both tame and wild, wandering in the fields. "I like this country," said Wallace. "Our men may have as much to eat of meat as they desired, and shall not have to eat grass." Well, I should hope not. I mean, I imagine that would be pretty... they're not sheep. I mean, who wants to eat grass? It must be a bit of a weirdo if you do, but unless you're an animal. Wallace gave little thought to his diet. When meat was available, he welcomed it, as in much the same manner as he welcomed sleep when he had the opportunity. Sometimes he had great sufficiency, while at other times he had little. He endured all weathers, sometimes a severe cold, sometimes heat, sometimes wind and rain. This was his life for 6 years and 7 months, until he won peace, left Scotland free, and went to France. However, after Wallace had gone abroad, the English made a new conquest of Scotland. Yeah, because Wallace has very firmly positioned himself as like the main general of the Scots. So when he's out of the picture, no one really knows what to do. Like, there's no one who can really fill the void when he's not there. And notice that the English have to wait until he's gone before they reconquer Scotland, because they know as long as he is there, it's going to be extremely difficult, if not impossible. But until Bruce steps up and becomes the king, there is no one who can take the place of Wallace. And this is very noticeable. It's like a cult of personality, if you want to put it like that. Like, when any like great leader, steps down or resigns or dies or anything like that. I mean, like, for example, Manchester United, I don't really follow football all that closely. I support Rangers. If you follow my channel, you'll know that. But, it seemed like when Sir Alex Ferguson, retired, like, even up to this day, there's been nobody who could really take his place, because, he was pretty irreplaceable as the manager of Man United, or even with Rangers itself. Like, when Walter Smith kind of, stepped down for the second time and, kind of retired, it took a long time before Stevie G was able to fill the void, that was left by Walter Smith. I mean, there were so many managers that came in and tried, but they just weren't up to the job. I mean, leadership is very important, be it in sports or nationalities or, armies or, let there be no mistake about this. One man can make a big difference. And when he's gone, who's there to take in the void? Who's there to replace him? Often it can be very difficult. Fortunately for Scotland, we had King Robert the Bruce to fill in the void when Wallace was gone. But, we got very, very, very lucky. That's my opinion on it. So, continuing here. Wallace addressed his men. "Here is a land with plenty of food to sustain us, We should thank God for his provision. 7 of you get ready to go with me to St Johnstoun, which is Perth nowadays. That's the old name for Perth, hence the name for the football team. And incidentally, St Johnstoun, the football team, St Johnstoun actually won the Scottish Cup quite recently after beating Hibs and Rangers. So well done to them, I suppose. I kind of saw that coming actually when Rangers played St Johnstoun in a cup. I thought St Johnstoun are going to beat us, they're going to win, and they did. So because all the Rangers fans were all on a high thinking, oh, with 155 we'll sweep St Johnstoun aside. Well, no, the warning signs were there because before the cup match we weren't able to beat St Johnstoun, and then came the cup match and we weren't able to score, and then it went into penalties and they won, and I knew that was going to happen. I just knew it. So there you go. But anyway, back to this. 7 of you go with me to St Johnstoun, a place I would very much like to see. It's also worth noting that St Johnstoun was the capital of Scotland at this time. Stephen, I pray that God grant you his protection. You are their leader while I am gone. Look after them well and let none go from your sight. I will return as soon as I may. Wait for me here 7 days in this forest. You will find plenty of food if I have to be away that long. You already have, and God will send you more should you need it. Wallace, along with the 7, made for St Johnstoun. He found that entry to the town was at the discretion of the mayor. So whoever's in charge of St Johnstoun is doing a far better job than Lord Percy, just right off the bat, you can tell. The mayor is actually paying attention to recent events, it would seem. The guards at the gate sent for the dignitary, and he arrived a short time later to see the strangers for himself. He politely inquired if they were Scots. Wallace spoke for the men. Aye, and in truth, we come here in peace. How he said that with a straight face, I will never know, given his 3 last visits to Ayr, but I guess it was what he wanted to hear, but I'm not sure that Wallace was entirely speaking the truth. I have to say that is something we like to hear. This is the mayor. True men of peace are always welcome in St Johnstoun. If you please, pray tell me your name. Since you ask, it is Will Malcolmson, from Ettrick Forest. There I was born and raised under the greenwood. Now I desire to see new parts and maybe earn my living in St Johnstoun. I might find it a better dwelling for me. Will Malcolmson? That's not much of a pseudonym, is it, when you think about it? Because that was William's father's name, Malcolm. So anyone who's kind of thinking of possible pseudonyms that Wallace might adopt, it's not even a lie. I mean, he is Will, the son of Malcolm, but I think I maybe would have put a bit more thought into that one, but whatever. Sir, I don't ask these questions intending any ill, but news of foul deeds of a large nature have reached our ears concerning one Wallace, who was born in the West. He has harmed King Edward's soldiers, and is a cause of much anxiety, martyring them down to death. It is a great pity. It is said he has broken a truce, which, incidentally, is true. Wallace did break the truce, because he couldn't control his temper. I don't think he set out to break it when he did, but Wallace is not the kind of guy who's going to sit back and watch an injustice happening before his eyes. He doesn't have a lot of patience for bullies, especially if they talk with an English accent, mate. I too have heard some talk of this man, but I know nothing of his affairs. So Wallace is just straight out lying here, but he wants to get into the town, so he needs to tell them what they want to hear. The mayor allowed them to enter, and Wallace sought a suitable inn for lodging. They found a place where they could be alone, as there were no other lodgers in that house. The stalwart Curly was sent to purchase some provisions. There was plenty of food to be found in the marketplace, and he soon returned to Wallace and the others heavily laden. And he didn't get harassed? Man, this mayor, whoever he was doing a way... you should send Lord Percy to this guy to take lessons. So yeah, there's nothing here saying that the English bothered him or anything. So might want to switch your personnel rotation, but I don't know, whatever. In the days that followed, Wallace gathered intelligence of the English strength. Englishmen invited him into their company to share drinks. He would normally have declined such offers, but on these occasions accepted all their invitations, so as to gather information, and to allay any suspicion on their part. Whenever he was in the company of Scots, he was generous with his money, but was more frugal in the company of Englishmen. Yeah, because they don't know who they're sitting next to, you know. In a short time, he soon gathered enough news of English strengths throughout the district. You know, someone give me the phone number for Ubisoft. You know, I've got an idea for them. You know, an Assassin's Creed game based on Wallace would be legendary. It would be epic. I'm a big fan of the series. Actually, I haven't played all the games. I don't really like Odyssey, I have to admit. I find it frustrating. I liked the one in Egypt. What was it called? Origins, I think. But I like the older ones better than the newer ones. Like, my favourite one was Assassin's Creed 3. That was my all-time favourite of the AC games. But an Assassin's Creed based on Wallace would be brilliant. I think there's enough there. There's enough, like, backstory and, you know, there's enough kind of mystery surrounding Wallace that you could make him an assassin. I mean, wouldn't that be so cool? It would be pretty awesome. I mean, he behaves like one, you know, if you played the games, you know, with a hood up all the time and being a really good swordsman. And here he's gathering information like those tailing missions, those endless fucking tailing missions in Assassin's Creed 4. Fuck me. What a pain in the arse. Still a good game, but the third one was the best in my opinion. Sir James Butler, an elderly knight, kept the strong castle of Kincleven. His son, Sir John, dwelt in the town as under-captain to Sir Gerard Heron. Eventually, Wallace gained the trust of many women of St. Johnstoun, one of them to whom he was particularly attracted. Wallace is... well, I can imagine Wallace would be pretty popular with the ladies because his reputation would... Well, they don't know it's him, mind you, but, you know, he's a big guy, you know? Big hands, big feet, big... I'm not going to finish that sentence, but... You know, you can see why Wallace would be attractive, you know, because he's a huge guy, you know. She lived at one end of the town near to the southern gate. Wallace secretly made known to her that he desired her company. Before long she returned his affection. His secret meetings with the young woman cheered him, while the English knew nothing of this affair. He told Master Blair, often at night, during this sojourn in St. Johnstoun, I was in misery, thinking to myself that the occupation of Scotland was to me worse than any pain that hell could devise. Excuse me. That those devils could rule the land and Scots have insufficient force to stand against them caused me great harm. To take the town was not possible, as we were so few. If I were to set it on fire, it may have undone me or lost me my men. I could do nothing. Gates were well locked and most deep with water. Though I can swim, not all the others could. I had to forget the matter, but I could no longer bear to stay in the town. Well, at least Wallace is getting a little bit of happiness, a little bit of sex. You know, be honest, that's what they're up to, sex. You know, and considering everything that Wallace has been through these past few weeks and months and all that, you know, it's been endless fighting and violence and, you know, he's... you know, had a falling out with his uncle. He's had to basically abandon his family because he just won't go along with the English, you know. And they're telling him all the time, calm down, you know, just think what you're doing and all this sort of thing and stop all this. And Wallace, like I said, you know, his face should be next to the word stubborn in a dictionary. He's a man who goes his own way because Wallace is an alpha male. You know, he's the last one who's going to fall in line. You know, he's a real alpha male. You know, he's not the kind who's just going to sit back and just take it. Never. That's not him. It's not him at all. So it's good that he's getting this little bit, you know, diversion, this little bit of pleasure, because his life has been a pretty hard one, you know. So I'll leave it there for this video, and we'll continue in the next part. Thanks for watching.